Good evening and welcome to Inside Adams County, a program designed to give viewers a look at important issues and happenings in your local area. Hello, I'm Pat Martinelli and I'll be your host this evening. The question we'll address is, can we forecast the future? Or better yet, can we determine just what is in store for us some 5 to 10 years out? Obviously, the answer is no, at least no, not precisely. But we can get a pretty good indication of what lies ahead by looking at our youth, and more specifically by looking at what they are being taught and how they are being taught. To help us with this, we are very fortunate this evening to have with us the 3 superintendents from Gettysburg, Littlestown, and Upper Adams County.
Our district remains pretty much stable in growth, but I think we're under increasing fiscal pressure in that our funding from the state has remained with slight increases, but the actual percentage we've received from them decreases each year. So just to make ends meet, you end up looking at a tax increase. What of course happens is then you never are able to improve as far as additional services educationally. In the years that I've been there, the only staff that we've ever added is in the area of special ed and in the area of English as a second language, ESL. We're never able to add additional reading teachers or additional math teachers that would provide additional services.
Dave, from Gettysburg perspective, what do you see out there now and in a couple of years from now?
I think quality is the issue, and quality by what name? In other words, quality by a person who wishes to have a great fine arts program, extracurricular program, gifted program, ESL, English Second Language. I think quality is the key in us defining what that quality is and also what the role of public education is, because we're being asked to do much, much, much more with fewer resources. So I think that's going to be the biggest challenge.
Let me ask you this, as a concerned citizen, I hear what's happening out in Oregon where they're actually cutting back on schools because of budget programs. I've heard each of you say budget's a problem. Do we foresee anything like that in our local area, that we'd have to cut services, cut the time in the classroom and so forth? Ask any one of you.
Well, I've been here for 17 years, and I can tell you I've been very proud of how people have established education as a priority, because education directly affects the quality of life, whether you're retired, whether you're a parent, whether you're a business owner. But there are going to be some very difficult times facing us, and I think we're fortunate that we have the local dedication plus also the state dedication.
That's good to know.
Yeah, I would echo that also, in that at Upper Adams School District, we've been very much supported by the community, the parents, the board. They've worked very hard, I think, to support us financially and also support us in a lot of other ways. We get wonderful attendance at student events, at athletic events. So it is a community that really cares about education.
That's reassuring to hear, because some of the other states, they have real problems in the sense of cutting back on their educational offerings. Even down in Maryland, right south of us here. Let's switch for a moment if we can. We hear a lot about No Child Left Behind. What impact does this have on your various programs? Bob, I'll go to you first.
All right. Well, that's a massive piece of legislation. It's over 10,000 pages and it's quite extensive. So there's very many aspects of that that's going to impact on Littlestown. One will be in policy, just policies alone that have to be rewritten, created, updated to comply with that act. From the educational point of view, I applaud the effort. I think in concept, the No Child Left Behind is good. I'm all for accountability. I think that you definitely need that in any system, be it education or business, whatever. However, I'm afraid that some of the standards that have been set are unrealistic. One in general is that by, I think, 2012, every student will be reading on grade level. And I just don't know how realistic that is. But that will be our challenge as educators to move those students forward. And we've always been focused on student achievement, and that is our main mission is to improve student achievement. I just don't know how attainable it's going to be under those standards.
Again, Dave, let me ask you, just what do you mean by no child be left behind? What is the basic concept there?
I think the concept basically is, as Bob mentioned, is that each child is progressing. No child is left behind. Every child is expected to progress and achieve by some preconceived standards.
But what happens to the child that has a language problem or a second language?
Yeah, we have a considerable percentage of our students who are English as a second language students. And interestingly, those students are included in the testing, but the test is in English only. So it becomes more than challenging, it becomes impossible. When you don't speak or read English, to be given a test in English seems to me that they have maybe carried what they would like a little too far with a little too much vigor. I think they need to step back and look at a more reasonable way. Plus, I think it's unhealthy to put a student in that position of saying, here's something you can't do it. That seems inappropriate even for an adult, let alone a student who's in their formative years. Mm-hmm. So I really have problems with that. I think that I would echo what my two colleagues said, in that I think the legislation is very well intended. Certainly all of us want to be accountable for quality products. We certainly want all of our students to be high performing and go out into the world as adults and be well equipped educationally. But I think the standards that they've set were not appropriate for what should have been done. And I think in addition to that, when we're trying to work with the state, they have a problem in that they've written specific standards by subject. And so as you look at those standards, they are so broad in their scope that it's very hard for anyone to really address all of those standards at a specific grade level during the year. I think it would have been much more successful if they focused in on essential elements, things that you really need to know in mathematics at a specific grade level. And if you had done that, I think the teachers then could have been more focused in their instruction, and I think we would have had better results within the whole No Child Left Behind statute.
It's going to be controversial. I can see it coming down the road. Let's switch a little bit here. Assuming that at least parts of Governor Rendell's budget are going to be passed, what impact will that have on each of your districts? I'll start with you, Dave.
Well, right now, we have parts of that budget already on the table, and we know that there's a number that we are giving as far as what we would be increased in basic subsidy and also in special education. So we already are trying to figure what that amount will be. That amount overall they indicate is about 2.5%. However, there is a lot of other talk regarding categorical monies for full-day kindergarten, early childhood, other aspects. So at this point in time, I think most people are budgeting very conservatively, and unfortunately, we need to have our budget passed by the end of June with some type of numbers that are stated in there where we believe that the state is not going to come out with a budget until possibly as late as August.
You're going to have some problems.
Well, it's almost trying to predict and catch the wind.
How about you, Bob, Littlestown? What's the impact?
I agree with what Dave is saying with regard to the budget. There's one point that I'd like to address that sort of is connected to the budget. It doesn't get much attention in the press, but that's the idea of legislation for referendum. And it seems that that is a foregone conclusion that there will be some type of legislation passed in the state requiring districts to go to a referendum if they plan on raising taxes.
That's interesting.
And that has significant implications. It's been done in other states, but in the other states there appears to be some support systems and different means of funding as opposed to Pennsylvania. And to just put a referendum in without that support system, I think could have some catastrophic problems for districts down the road. And of course all that is tied to the budget and budget monies that are coming from Governor Rendell's proposed budget.
How about you, Ross?
I guess I would say what they said maybe in a more simplistic fashion, and that is, I want you to develop a budget, but I'm not going to tell you how much revenue you have. and I think that presents a very challenging problem when you know that by June 30th you have to have a budget officially enacted by the board. So it is a very difficult situation. We also, of course, have some things that are different from district to district. For example, we have a full-day kindergarten program, which has been very good for our students and very well accepted by the community and endorsed. But yet that full-day kindergarten program would be funded, but at the moment is not. So you're, again, building a budget based on what may be funded and is in place, but is at the moment not funded. So it has a certain complexity to it, and it has some difficulties to it as far as dealing with that. Obviously, I'd love to also see tax relief for our local taxpayers and get things back in a better order with respect to the subsidy formula.
That leads into a good question. I think our viewers would be very much interested in exactly what services do you provide other than the basic education. You've got special ed, you've got English as a second language and so forth. Dave, I'll start with you in Gettysburg. What additional services to basic teaching do you provide?
Well, it's interesting. What do you call basic today? Are nursing services basic in schools? Are guidance services basic? Are extracurricular activities basic to a community that wants to go out Friday night to watch football or wrestling on a Saturday evening? So I think basic has been broadened by the local expectations. I think right now something that we're all looking at are services for at-risk students in regard to alternative education programs, outside placements, because every child has a right to an education. You can never take it away.
You mean what now?
Well, what I'm saying is at-risk broadly defined could be anything in regard to special education, students who are oppositional defiant, and I think all of us are seeing students who come in more oppositionally defiant that cannot function within a normal population. So there's a lot of things that Gettysburg and I know other districts provide besides, quote, whatever the basic is.
Bob, how about you?
Well, I would echo what Dave was saying when we talk about basic. We, for example, have a tech prep program. Now, is that basic?
Tech prep.
Tech prep program.
What's involved with that?
That allows students to go out and be trained in various trades. We have culinary arts, allied health, computer maintenance and repair. But again, that's done outside the regular school, during the school day, but not in the home school. So is that basic or not? But addressing the at-risk, we've done things such as bullying programs at the elementary level, middle school level, peer mediation, student assistance teams, things of this nature. Our alternative ed classes that we have at both middle school and high school for those students who can't quite be successful in the traditional classroom setting. So we put things like that in place. We found them to be successful.
Ross, what are you doing up there?
Let me try to answer the question by phrasing it differently. We talked about basic, but maybe another way of phrasing it would be, what are you required to do? We are required to provide regular ed services. We are required to provide special ed. We are required to provide ESL. We are required to provide foreign language services. So I think there's a lot of items that we sort of talk about, are they basic, aren't they basic, isn't really the issue. A lot of what we've been talking about are really required things that we do. And of course, those items require funding. But we do, as they've mentioned, there's some examples though where we go beyond that. And of course the athletic programs, the band programs, and those things. And I think they're often in South Central Pennsylvania held very near and dear to the community and an important part of the community life, but also an important part of the school experience. I mean, what do you remember from your high school days? And I think a lot of those activities that we work hard to go beyond the school day are things that they really treasure throughout their life. So I see them as important things that we do.
That leads into a question that's a little, I'd say maybe distasteful, maybe kind of scary, and that is school security. Now, we see in the news such abominable things as the Columbine incident and what have you, and it seems periodically to be happening. What is our situation in Adams County? I'll start with you, Bob.
Okay. Fortunately, knock on wood, at least at Littlestown, and I think it can be said to the county in general, that our students, I think, have been excellent in terms of discipline, vandalism, things of this nature. That being the case, though, you can't ignore the other incidents that are going on, as you say, Columbine, and things that have happened in Red Lion, so on and so forth. So we've taken some steps. We've developed a crisis plan, as every district has, and we do some drills with the students.
You actually do drills with
yes,
the students?
Yeah, sure. And have put in some security measures in general, buzz-in systems and ID badges for staff, things like this. Every department in our district is identified in some way. Cafeteria, for example, those individuals all have certain color shirts, as do maintenance. So if a student sees someone in the building, if they don't have that shirt on or a name tag, students know that they should report it.
I'm curious, how do students take a drill like that? I mean, what's the reaction from students?
Well, we have a procedure that we do, and it comes out over the building administrator will make the announcement over the PA system, and then the crisis plan is right on the teacher's desk, and they give the students directions from there.
Dave, how about in Gettysburg? What's your perception?
Well, we have similar procedures, drills, and you're asking how students take that. Students do extraordinarily well with drills. Staff, they do very, very well.
And they take them seriously.
They take them seriously, and actually they do understand the importance of them. We do them monthly, if not
monthly.
And you're required to do fire drills monthly by law, but we also do lockdown drills or evacuation drills. But also, we have telephones in every room, a lot of radios. I find that communication systems, for example, probably all three of us have a cell phone with us right now that we can be reached in a second's notice. That's good and bad.
So we turn those cell phones off.
We do off. Yes, they are. They're off right now, actually, which it gets to become annoying at times. But we also like the ID badges. I mean, all of us wear the ID badges, and then we have security systems that you have proximity reader where this buzzes you in. So there's a lot of systems we have. But I think something that most of us do is understand that security is everyone's responsibility. Parents' responsibility, the community's responsibility, and the schools. And if they hear of anything that they believe could be considered at risk or dangerous, they should contact us. And that's something that we found more and more students are able to do. Most situations that are prevented come to us because of parents or students who let us know about them.
Ross, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, we do a lot of the same things, but I must confess from a personal level, it is something that wears on you. It's something that can at times occupy your thoughts. And, have we done enough? Have we done too much? Have we in some way made the building inaccessible to parents, inaccessible to visitors? So you really do worry from time to time about the whole thing. And I think that's why we continue to modify. It's evolutionary. It's not something that's in place and done. And I think it will continue to evolve.
Do you have drills in Upper
Yes, we
Adams
do.
County,
Yes.
like Bob mentioned?
And of course, the crisis plan, the emergency plans. We also have built some security in that's actual part of the building, physical part of the building. So those changes have been made.
Well, we're getting close to our time allotted to us, but let me ask a question to all three of you. Students today, in either grade school, middle school, or in the high school area, how do they differ from when, Dave, I'll ask you, when you were that age? I mean, are they smarter, they brighter, what's the difference?
I think students today are much more in tune to what's happening around them. I think students today are intellectually better than we were ever. I think they are able to achieve standards that we were never dreamt about. I think they're talented. I think they're personable. They're fun, energetic. And I think many times you look at what they aren't. And I think they're more positive than they are not. And I enjoy it. It's exciting to be around students who just enjoy life. And it's fun to see that.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. You often, unfortunately, you hear about the 5% of the students that are doing things that are inappropriate, as opposed to the 95% that are working hard, they're positive, they have goals, they work hard to achieve those goals. I think one thing that the students today have that probably none of us here had were the number of options of things, not only outside of school but within school. I know when I went to school, you had a basic college prep, general or business curriculum, and that was it. And you played maybe three or four sports that were available. Now there's so many clubs and extracurricular activities and theater that can address students' needs and interests. I think it would just be great to be back in high school again and be able to take advantage of some of the opportunities that are afforded to them.
Russ, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I have to agree. I think the students have been terrific at Upper Adams School District, and we thoroughly enjoy our work with them. That's, I think, a real plus. I'd give an example of what Dave Maury was talking about. When I went to school, if someone was learning to be an auto mechanic, can you rebuild a carburetor and can you deal with a couple hundred yards of wiring? Today, when we send one of our students up to Cumberland Perry Votech to learn how to be an auto mechanic, they're dealing with all the computerized aspects and trying to diagnose a much more complex engine, and they're dealing with a couple miles of wiring inside a car. So it is much more complex, and we are asking them to do much more than maybe they ask of some of us. On the other hand, I think that training needs to be given, and we need to deal with an ever more complex world, and hopefully we can provide them with the resources they need.
Your answers are very reassuring because you know there's a group out there we call Generation Y. That's the youngster that's roughly 20 years of age or younger. And they're sort of getting a bad rap out there that they ain't like they used to be. They're not, they dress different, they like different music and what have you. And to hear what you had to say, it's a little bit reassuring. Is that Generation Y as bad as they say they are, Dave?
Well, I remember we were in high school and our parents said that about us. In the 60s and 50s and 70s, they said, well, they dress funny and they look funny. But I will tell you right now, the students today come in with a lot of baggage. And I don't want to paint the picture totally bright, that there are a lot of issues out there with broken families, one parent, no parent families, poverty issues, homeless issues. So I don't want to say it's all bright and sunny out there. And I think the students have been very resilient given those challenges. But we do have some kids that are very oppositional to find, and we have to really take care of.
How's Generation Y acting up in Littlestown?
Well, again, I think that their future is bright. They have more going for them than any other group that's come through. And just as Dave said, you know, when I was in school, rock and roll was the evil.
Yeah, we used to dress kind of funny.
Downfall of society. So, and I think we all can say we reasonably got through in good shape. And I'm confident that this generation will too. They're just like every generation. There are a set of problems, societal problems that need to be dealt with. In the 50s, it was the Cold War and bomb shelters, people building bomb shelters and so on, what have you. Today, it's single-parent families. There are drug issues, things of that nature. So, but I'm confident they'll work through. They'll be successful. Yes.
Each generation has their own uniform and their own way of doing things, and I don't think there's anything new about that. We've probably had about 100 years of that history in this country where each of the generations has their own way of going at this, and I have all the faith imaginable that they too will move us forward.
I agree with what you're saying. So each generation has a uniform. My generation had a zoot suit. Are any of you young, old enough to know what that means, that word, a zoot suit?
Tell us.
The big pants and the double-breasted suit and a very wide shoulder. It's a very good answer. We all have our uniform. We all have our special music. We all have our special set of problems to address. But somehow if we come through with it, and this generation will too. Because again, what you've told me, they're a pretty bright generation. They've been exposed to more information. They've had more experience in this world and what have you. Gentlemen, time is running out on us. We're going to have to cut off at this point. I want to thank you very much for taking the time out on a very busy day. I know the job of superintendent is one that keeps you going more than 8 hours a day. So on behalf of Inside Adams County, thank you very much for coming in here.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, in a previous show, we talked to an elementary school and a high school teacher. And on balance, their assessment of the student was very positive. Tonight, I think you've seen the same thing. Our superintendents today told us that, look, we really don't have a lot to worry about because we have some pretty good students out there. On balance, we have a very secure system, and we also have a system which is producing good citizens for the years to come. So on behalf of Inside Adams County, we thank you for being with us this evening.